Yeah.
I did this thing with Mike Kaplan because we did it the same way, but he told me to go on this website, and then we did a countdown. It's a clock that all of us will see that's on the same time.
Okay.
And it'll count down to seconds. But I feel like since you're on your phone, you can't do the two apps at the same time.
Oh, I might not be able to. It would be funny if he told you to go on Pornhub and he tried to get you to do porn.
He's like, okay, they have the best timestamp. So,
Yeah.
and I'm like, Mike, this is just porn.
It'd be funny too because he's so such like a woman's empowerment friend. So it'd be weird for him to just be getting you onto porn. Mike Kaplan's very nice.
He is very nice. I just always feel like he feels like the kind of guy that would be really concerned about your pussy.
Yeah, but like he'd be concerned about it and then say like, let me check it out just to make sure it's okay. And you'd be like, I mean, I think I trust him. And then you'd be like, this seems a little weird though.
Yeah, like he would like try to give it compliments to empower it.
Yeah, I always felt really safe around guys that did not care about my safety at all. You ever have those friends who wouldn't even walk you home or anything and you're like, that guy has no interest in raping me?
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. I remember always being like, if Joe would never walk me home when we first started kind of seeing each other. I knew he liked me and I was like, that's so weird. He doesn't walk me home and I'm only 2 blocks away from his apartment.
But he might have also thought you're only 2 blocks away. So if something happens, he'll probably hear you from his apartment.
That is true. I did write, there was a joke that I wrote about like when guys would do, I remember one time I was hanging out with Mateo and he goes, it was kind of late. We walked all the way to 59th Street and just like gossiped and stuff. And then he's like, all right, just text me when you get home so I know that you made it safely. I always thought that was funny because I'm like, yo, what if I don't? What are you going to do if I'm like, Mateo, I'm in a trunk of a car. Like, you have to find me. Like, it's too late. Like, it doesn't do anything for me to be like, to text him when I get home.
It's just a way to pretend to care about you.
Yeah.
Like,
I like it. It's sweet. But it's just like when you actually think about applying it, you're like, it doesn't do anything.
Well, also, you ever have somebody say, like, text me when you get home, and then you don't text them, and they don't even follow up? They're just like, I guess you're dead. They're never like, hey, are you okay? They're just like, I guess she died.
Yeah,
just crossing me off their wedding invitations.
Oh yeah, well, I remember I waited the next morning to text him, and I thought it was funny to wait so long, and he didn't even go, where are you? You never texted me.
Yeah. That's happened so many times. Where no one is like, hey, did you get there safe? They're just like, oh, well.
Oh, well. Well, I'll go to her funeral.
Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, that's the least I can do.
Isn't it weird when you go to funeral? It's so weird to go to funerals, and that's where a place where you can run into so many people, where you actually, that's a place where you have to look nice. Have you ever gone out to get an outfit for a funeral? Because you're like, I'm going to see so many people there. I need to look my best.
Yeah, it's a weird balance of like, you want to look great, but you can't, look like you're there.
I mean, I remember
people.
I know. I remember when my friend from grammar school killed himself. I had like gotten pretty thin, and I was like, "Oh yes, this is gonna be great." And I went out and got like new pants and stuff, and I have to say, it was worth it. Thank you, Joe, for risking your life so I could run into everyone from grammar school.
At the right time. It's almost like, hey, can you do this for me right now? Because this would be a really great time to have a eat your heart out moment.
It's just it was so weird because it's like I haven't seen most of those people for a long time. And then it's weird. Those type of people you just kind of pick right back up with. Like I haven't seen some of them for like 15, 20 years. And then you just kind of, maybe even longer than that, just kind of pick back up like, that's where I realized I got like this dark sense of humor. All those people I went to grammar school with have the darkest sense of humor. Like just saying the most inappropriate stuff at our friend's funeral that killed himself.
Yeah. I mean, that's the best kind of relationship, I think, are the ones that you know. I mean, don't you feel like, I feel like when you're doing, you should say this on stage the next time when they're like getting, the audience is getting uncomfortable with you. I think you should be like, guys, this is a really good sign that I'm doing this atrocious humor with you guys because it means that I like you and I feel comfortable with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, my friend that killed himself, what a dark sense of humor. He's like, the guys are going to love this.
Yeah. No, I know, exactly.
How was your shows this weekend? How was performing inside since what, March?
Yeah, since March. Well, first of all, it was still depressing because then in your mind you're like, yeah, I'm headlining. Like, this is cool. And I felt good the first the Friday night, the first two shows. And I brought my notebook on stage and I only looked at it 3 times within my set of trying to memorize things. And there were definitely times where I'm like, yeah, I left out that sentence. That would have been an important sentence to set up my punchline a little bit better. So I had to call it out.
Plug your album.
Yeah.
It's a great time to be like, but go listen to my album. That's when I really remembered how that joke went.
I know, and it was like, so they did 2 shows Friday night. It was about 10 people in each, and that one I liked the crowd better. But the second show Friday, there was a woman that was just like, you know, white lady. It's always a lady like maybe in her late or 50s, late 40s or 60s, and they're always just having like a full-on conversation with their girlfriend about their day-to-day life shit, just at a regular level. And, you know, you let it go by for about 5 minutes, but then you're like, she's doing this the whole entire show. So then you got to say something. Or it was one lady that was like, anything that you said, she'd go like this. Oh, not on my time. No way, honey. I don't think so. And she did it for every comic. And you're just like, and it was the same white lady, middle-aged, you know, in her 50s, white.
Why is she talking?
Don't know.
She's had 5 months to catch up with this idiot. Why is she talking during your set? We've had so much downtime. It's so inappropriate to go to a comedy show now and be yapping on the phone.
It's
or
so
yapping
weird.
to your dumb friend.
It was like that for 3 shows out of the 4. 3 of the shows had the same kind of lady. They all looked the same. Just annoying, and to the point where I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Are you fighting? This is like the whole show. You guys have been just catching up on old times. I'm glad that my jokes are jogging your memory of what you should talk about with your friend. But like, I can hear you the whole entire time. And then I wasn't getting upset because you're like, it is what it is. It's just like they came out. They don't feel like what they're doing is bad. And then she's just having a full-on boring conversation with me. She's like, I was telling my friend that I remember when I was a kid that we had milkmen. There were guys that came to our house and delivered milk. And then I'm just having like this boring podcast on stage in front of all the...
Are you like, what did I say that triggered that?
Well, I do have this like dumb little observation about milkmen, and then
it's your fault.
It is. It usually jogs up these older ladies' memories about how they used to have milk delivered and how much they loved it and they wish that it would come back. And you're like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you should start a Reddit side group and discuss this with other ladies your age about this, but not at my show. Not at my show, lady.
Speaking of it, I actually would love a milk service again. I'm on it with these ladies. I agree. It would make me have a 20-minute conversation.
Yeah, and then I always thought it always seemed like those guys were like hot. What a sad job that was, that you had to like dress in all white, but they always made it seem like that was a stand-up job, like your husband was the milkman, and it was like a middle-aged man.
What a nightmare, though, to like be a milk lady and get your period that day, and it's just like all over your pants. You have to just,
and then you're like, I'm so sorry, the milk is spoiled because I had to go get tampons. I left it in the heat.
And you're like, I'm just going to back up out of here so you can't see my ass. I wonder if they probably did not allow milk ladies back in the day.
Probably not. And don't you think if we had milkmen now, they would basically be what Uber drivers or Grubhub delivery people look like, where they're just like
Disgruntled.
slobs.
And disgruntled, sad people.
Yeah, I remember when I worked at this restaurant, every time we had the Grubhub delivery guy come in, they'd always look like shit. Like their shirt untucked in. It was a T-shirt that was old. It was stained. Their hair was, disheveled. And then it became my funny insult to people whenever they walked in the bar. I'd be like, "Oh, are you Grubhub?" And they're like, "No." And I was like, "Oh, I thought you were the Grubhub guy." It just made me laugh to be like, "Oh, that's my way of telling you you look like shit right now."
Yeah, you should be like, go home and change if you're not Grubhub. I wonder how many comics will say, like, once comedy really gets back, like, full swing, how many comics, like, when a heckler's being annoying, will be like, "Oh, too bad you didn't die during COVID." I feel like that's going to be a pretty, that's going to be I'm calling it right now that's going to be a pretty common, I guess, heckle and reply.
It definitely crosses your mind. I think it was something that I was like probably said in the green room where I was like, "God, why can't COVID hit those people?"
It's gonna be everyone's go-to line.
Well, you know what it was? That lady was like, when I started talking to them, they were like, "This is the only bar that's open right now," or like, because apparently Arlington is really close to DC. It's basically just like feels like a neighborhood of DC. And DC is so strict. Like they're cracking down on outdoor shows. Like you can't even do outdoor comedy because there was a few shows that the mayor's office had to shut down this weekend. Oh, and then Nick Thune was at the Draft House in DC and they canceled his show. And I was like, man, I wish that happened to me because I'm sure he got paid the full weekend and didn't have to work. And I was like, ugh, I have to do. But you know what? I had a really good time. And then here's the thing. You know how you said that when you were talking to comics, they said usually about the fourth set is when they had by the fourth set, I didn't have to look at my set list anymore.
That's great.
Yeah. So it is. I feel like that is the right number of times. By the time you do it, you're like, okay, I have my flow. But I still, on the drive home, I was like, oh shit, I forgot that tag. I forgot that sentence. Like such important details. And you're like, I forgot like a huge chunk of stuff.
Yeah, there's jokes that I've thought about recently, and I'm like, I have no idea how that goes. Like right now, I could only tell you basically the premise. I'd get on stage and just have premises at this point. I'd have to really go back and listen to stuff.
Yeah, it's weird. I found it easier just to do my new stuff than it was to go do my old stuff. Because then you're just like...
That makes sense.
Yeah, because you start your old stuff with a sense of confidence thinking that you have it. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of your joke, you're like...
I have no idea
how I say it. And then I forgot the really important sentence that explains everything. Like, it was just really weird where you're like, it was just easier and more fun for me to do than like newer stuff.
I also think when you do new stuff, you kind of are a little more confident in it because you're excited in it. Excited for these new bits.
Well, yeah. Like, that's the thing that's like such a bummer of... So when I was doing like, say, kind of like 20, 25 minutes as a feature work, I could always have a huge chunk of that being new the next time around or most of it.
Yeah.
But now it's like, since I'm doing 45 minutes, that you're like, now I have to go back to doing some of the way older stuff that I don't want to do.
Or you could just bomb.
I could. I mean, especially I was like, if these guys judge me on this kind of set, like, I was the first weekend back for them, and then I thought I did well, but I wasn't like when I thought about how much I got paid, and then I did a head count, I was like, how did they make any money this weekend?
Well, that's because you probably had that rate before you did it, right? Before like the quarantine and everything. Was it before or after? It was after.
I got booked this gig way after. They were going to try to do it about a month ago. and then it got shut down, and now they were allowed to
That's
open
cool.
up. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe it'll get better. I think I was going to see if I could try to get tested, but then you don't get your results for about 2 weeks.
Yeah, my friend Joe said that he had been home for 2 weeks and he didn't know if he had it or not because he did have fever and he wasn't feeling great, but it was just like a regular virus. He didn't have.
I don't feel anything. Here's the weird thing too. All of these shows that are like opening up, a lot of them they didn't have. I had to say, if I didn't say something, we all would have used the same mic. But I go, what are you guys doing for the mic situation? I was like, because we can't all use the same mic, and they were just like, oh shit. And it was like this weird dilemma that we had 10 minutes before the show. I was like, I brought my own mic cover, but then they were like, we can get you a wireless mic, and then Joe did a guest spot, and Joe and I shared the mic, and then the MC got his own mic.
That makes sense if you're gonna share vaginal parking spots. You could use the same mic. That's what I was gonna say. I actually just bought my own mic. I was like, and some mic covers because I think I'll start doing some outdoor shows, but I don't want to touch other people. Especially when I use the mic, I always rest it on my chin, and that's
I did.
I think that's how I get sick a lot. So I definitely don't want to be getting people's gross.
Well, like
especially some comics spit all over the mic.
I mean, there's certain comics afterwards you're like, this mic stinks.
It's disgusting. Two come to mind.
Email us and we'll let you know. It's guys.
Email us and we'll let you know which guy comics after they use the mic, it fucking stinks.
It's it's weird.
Yes.
Yeah, I enjoyed it back, but yeah, it's not like the most perfect conditions, I think. But yeah, that's the thing I was going to say, like a lot of these places aren't using fresh mics.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a problem.
Yeah. And you're like, hey, I'm nice. I'm going to be nice about this. If you guys don't fix this, there's going to be someone that's going to be a huge problem and make this like a thing where it ends up getting shut down.
Yeah, I just see Yamanika screaming about it. Like if Yamanika gets booked there, she's not going to be happy that they don't have multiple mics. What are they doing at shows, though? Are they doing mic covers or are they just spraying it?
New York Comedy Club has it where the MC has their own, and then I think they've been switching out like 2 mics, so when one person's using it, they're like wiping down the other one. But in my mind, I don't know. I still don't feel like wiping down is great, that I'd rather just bring this and have it so it covers my mouth so I'm not resting it on top of what other people are using, or a fresh mic.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's weird. I can't imagine going back on stage now after not being on stage since March and what it's going to feel like. I'm kind of excited for it, but
it's low threshold. The expectation for you is low. So you kind of, I was like, this is the sweet spot for me. Like if I had to do a show like that was like Denver Comedy Works where it's 300 people and it's your first show back, you're like, this sucks.
Did the audience wear masks or no? I would think they didn't, right?
Some weren't because there was food and drink. But
yeah.
I made a joke. I was like, oh, I think we're pretty safe from COVID in here because it was just 10 people spread out at a theater that probably seats about 200.
There was not only 10 people.
10 people on like Friday night, and then but for both shows Friday night it was about 10 to 15, and then on Saturday I think I had the most at 50, and then Saturday late it went back to like 10 or 15 people.
That's weird because I don't even know how they're going to make money doing that.
I think what it is just like this is the first week, and it'll probably get a little bit better. They're starting to show movies there, which probably might do. And then I think if people aren't going to get sick, then they'll keep doing it and it'll get better. But I made everybody wear a mask in the green room.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I was like, the green room, it's just small. And I was like, we can hear each other. And I think it's just better to be on the safer side than...
That's smart. That's a good idea.
Yeah. So that was, but we'll see. I don't know. You know, I do think that most stuff seems to be spread with extended stays indoors than doing outdoor stuff.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to hit like a resurgence back in the fall, winter? Like
I don't
we're
know.
all going to be back inside again, kind of how we were in March and April.
I wouldn't doubt it, especially now that schools are back in. I think the schools in Texas have already gone back in, and then this is a headline I saw. I don't know what the publication was, so it's hard to know if it's legit, but something about like at least 10,000 new cases as soon as school let in at like around the Texas schools.
Jesus.
I know that you're just like, I mean, it makes sense. They're inside. That's when you got sick, is when you went to school. It was awful.
You would get sick in school without a pandemic. Like every year, everyone gets sick just because you're all inside. Kids are not kids are not covering their mouths. I remember one time being in grade school, and I think I talked about this because we were talking about something else, and like a guy that I was talking to, just like a snot bubble came out and was on my desk. Like, and that was just like no pandemic. Like just a snot landed on my blotter. Did you have blotters?
What are those? Like, do you dip your pen in and then write?
No, they were like, you put them on your desk and it kind of protected your desk. You worked on it. I wonder how many people have blotters. That's what it was called.
I'm going to look that up.
And then by the end of the year, it just looked like shit. Like it had like, you had to take it home and get it covered with like that plastic that you protected your books with.
Yeah.
That was also a nightmare. And then by the end of the year, the two things on the side, you always pulled it up. You put stuff inside of it. It just looked like a fucking mess. But it was to protect the desk, like the top of it.
Well, that makes sense. I guess we didn't have blotters. We just had... That
doesn't even sound like what other people would call them, though. That's what we call them in school.
Yeah. I mean, I have this, like, desk protector thing, but I don't think on Amazon it was called a blotter.
Let me see what it looks like. Is it too big to bring up?
Yeah. Well, it's my computer is on it, but I can... It just looks like that.
It's kind of like that. It's kind of like what it was. Something like that.
Yeah. I took an old table and I got a desk that I had that was all cut up, and then I just put removable wallpaper on it to give it a new top to it. These are all these things I'm learning on TikTok.
Well, isn't TikTok coming down in like a month or something?
That's what it says, but they're countersuing because they said what Trump did is unconstitutional, which it is. You can't just force a business to shut down. And then for somebody like Trump to be like, to shut it down for a guy that wants to create or is trying to create jobs in America, like a lot of people have had extreme amount of success by being like all these makeup artists, clothing designers, drop shipping people, art, like Etsy people are able to sell their art products because of that, because now people get to watch how they do it and it becomes viral. That I just feel like, I don't know, it sounds pretty shitty to close down an app. Like, I really like it because out of all of them, it's the most positive one. Like, it's really funny. It's like when I go on Twitter now, all it is just like riot shit, calling out people, depressing news articles where I'm like, I just like Twitter to read really funny takes on stuff. And now it's just like nonstop people just upset about stuff. And you're just like, Twitter's a fucking bummer.
Twitter seems like the place that used to be cool and then your parents started going to it. That's exactly what Twitter is now. It's just like not cool. First of all, I love the idea of Trump canceling TikTok just because I never got on it and I don't want to learn it. So I was just like so excited that it's going to get taken away.
Yeah. Well,
I understand a lot of people like it, but I'd be fine with it going away.
I saw your tweet about because he executive ordered about the stimulus benefits, and you're like, I'd go for Hitler right now if he just extended our $600 a week.
First of all, my best friend that lives in Texas, I don't know if she listens to this or not, but I said to her, I go, if this was like before all this stuff was going on with the $600 where we didn't know it was going to happen. And I said, would you vote for Trump if they said that is the only way you can get the $600? And I said, absolutely. I was like, I don't give a shit. And then she said, no way. I would rather work at a convenience store as a cashier, and I was like, wow, like that's so crazy to be so righteous that you would be homeless.
Miserable.
Or like you're not going to be able to pay your mortgage working as a cashier, but like to feel so righteous, like you're doing the right thing, but also you're going to be like out on the street. And I guess I'll just say to her like, hey, when I'm taking the $600 for voting for Trump, like I'll give you soup every once in a while when I see you on the street.
Well, I mean, I have that dilemma of like, so my old boss came.
Not that is the rule. Like if you vote for him, we're going to get it. But if that was the rule, I would vote for him instead of not voting at all.
A hypothetical question. Yeah, it's a really great question to figure out ethics and where people stand. I'm all for those kind of questions. Like, but it is true where like, I don't know, man. I think about my boss, my old boss, and I hated that job. And they paid me less than what I'm making now. And I worked so hard and all the bullshit that I had to do with it and how much stress it caused me. And knowing now I'm getting to live the life the way that I wanted to. And it's not like I'm just sitting on my ass at home. We're doing our podcast. I edit it. I'm learning videos.
Yeah.
I'm making videos. And you're kind of slowly doing outdoor shows. You're like, why would I want to go work a 40-hour work week and then be so tired when I'm trying to also do this other shit when I can just focus on this right now? It's like the best thing that's ever happened to me.
It's like such a bite your nose to spite your face. Like there's so many awful things I would do for the $600 to continue.
Yeah.
Like I would fuck Hitler. Like I would let Hitler come on my face for $600. Like I would do so many awful things just for that money that would benefit almost nobody.
Yeah, and we were like, that would benefit a lot of people to have that $600 extra a week. I mean, you know what's funny? I thought when they took away the $600 last week, I was like, nice try. I'm still doing better than I was doing beforehand.
I know. And probably a lot of people are.
I mean, that $500 was $100 less than I was making at the other job, technically. In the other job, that's fine because the other job, I would have to sometimes buy lunch and that would or get coffees and that would add up to probably $100 a week. Or take
the train, get your period, get Band-Aids.
Yeah,
buy
all that expense of leaving your apartment to go work that job that you're like, I'm sorry, the $500 a week is still better than what I was doing beforehand. Yeah. And that job was like, that's not like a dumb job. Like I had to think it had to deal with finances and money and helping people move a shit ton of money and stuff like that. That you're just like, that was insane how much money they paid me. It's so little. And no insurance.
Why don't you call them up and tell them that?
I should. I thought about it. I was like, I'm going to pass like all the bullshit that I had to deal with, all like the two guys in the office that never did anything. And then you would give them, you would let them, do their bullshit and put then their workload on the rest of us. I mean, I want to be like, fuck you guys and fuck you for paying me $100 more than the $500 that I'm making on unemployment, which everybody considers an unlivable wage.
Yeah, to live in New York City and get paid the amount of money we get paid is astounding. Like, just, we get paid so little to live here. It's funny because I'm in that unemployment group on Facebook, and you'll see people who are fighting with other people on there, and they're like, they basically live in a part of New York City because they're like complaining about people getting the $600 taken away, and you're like, you live in bumblefuck New York. Like that, you can't compare New York and New York City. It's just not the same.
Two different things.
Two different things. We got hit so much harder because there's so many more people in a very dense area, and they're like in bumblefuck. And I guess that's that's their right. It's so weird too because they're like, well, that's your choice, and I'm like, not really. I was born here. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I have nowhere to go back to.
Yeah, your network is there. Your family is there, and that's the thing. I mean, I understand that sometimes I get that way with people where I'll look at that guy my bar back guy that I worked with who lives in a one bedroom and his wife have the living room and his 3 kids have the bedroom. And I'm like, hello,
Jesus,
you could make
that's insane because you could go anywhere to be a bar back.
Yeah. And I was like, for the amount of money that you make, you could have a decent home and a really great school district for your kids. Like, get out of New York. It's an awful place to live if you're here for something that doesn't need to be, you know what I mean? Like, you could do service somewhere else. Go to D.C. That's a better city for a service job.
But even D.C. is pretty expensive. Like, my next door, he could go anywhere and do that. Like, my next door neighbor, she's a nurse. She has a kid, and her husband is like, he works at the deli as like a deli slicer. And I'm like, why are you paying $1,400 for a 1-bedroom apartment? Like, go to Delaware. Go to a small. You could be a nurse anywhere, and you can slice deli meat anywhere. Probably you could be a nurse somewhere, and he wouldn't have to even slice deli meat. He could just stay at home and do nothing. But they're cramped to this tiny 1-bedroom, and they're paying more money than I'm paying. It's like, it doesn't make sense.
Oh, it's crazy. Like, Joe showed me on his family's block where they live. He showed me this house that basically just looks like a double wide trailer that they just plopped on land and kind of just painted it and put a few shrubs. He's like, this house goes for $400,000. That I was like, you could, for that amount of money, you could live in Texas with a mini mansion and go to a really great school for your kids. And
$400,000, yes.
And live 30 minutes or 20 minutes away from the best medical facilities ever, where they're still like they're like an hour away from Boston.
I wish that you could have a trailer in New York City. I would love a trailer here. Just like in the Bronx somewhere.
Just like a nice, and then a trailer park would be nicer than most apartments in New York City.
It'd definitely be bigger.
Yeah. I mean, you get more space. The things are probably newer. I mean, I always just think it's funny about New York's workmanship. Like how I see like videos of New York apartments and you can't even open the door all the way because it just hits the hallway. Or your refrigerator, you can't even open that all the way because the kitchen's like this tiny. So when you open the door, you have to like put your finger in the fridge. It's so insane.
I think it was John Fish had for guys that don't know, he's a really funny comic. He had a joke about how he could be laying in his bed and he could touch both sides of his wall.
Yeah.
And that's like a common thing.
I like if you vacuum your apartment, you don't even have to switch plug points to go to another area. You can just vacuum your whole apartment from one pivot point.
I remember when we were kids, my mom would give us chores, which I don't know why, because the house was always a mess.
Yeah.
And we could either vacuum or dust. And I always wanted to dust because, like, you didn't have to switch the stupid vacuum cord. And dusting is the least amount of work you can do. You basically just pass a thing along stuff.
Yeah, you're just dragging it. You could just drag your hair along all of it and pick up all that dust and then go wash your hair.
Yeah, that was, I used to always want to dust. I hated, what chores did you have to do? I hated doing the bathroom.
I didn't mind.
Especially as a kid.
I cleaned my own bathroom even as a kid. Like, and still to this day, every roommate situation that I've had or like live-in relationship, I'm the one that does the bathroom, and I actually have no problem doing that.
It just takes the longest.
It does, and then you're also dealing with the grossest elements, but no one does it, and I have a really big problem of like, I hate, when you would date a guy that just had lived in a house with other guys, and you'd go have to take a shower, and it would just be like, there's no shampoo in there, and you're like
layers of mildew. Just fucking gross. Like an oil slick. It's so gross and disgusting that you could slide on in.
It's so crazy. You're like, this is horrific that you guys are living this way. And then I'm like, there's no soap in here. What are you guys doing? And then their shampoo bottle, the one shampoo bottle that they're all sharing, just has mildew all over it because they've never it's just been in there for months. It's so crazy.
We've done this podcast for so long that I don't remember if I've told this story or not. I was very new into comedy, and I went to this girl, maybe a couple of years in, and I went to this girl's house. We were going to do a show together, and I would never, ever think that she was the biggest disgusting pig ever. Like, not fucking a lot of people. Her house was a pigsty.
Yeah.
You walked in, you can't even imagine the level of what I'm going to explain. It looked like her toilet had never, ever been cleaned. And forget about the bathroom. She had stuff all over her floor where you cannot walk and not step on something.
That's crazy.
I mean, dishes in the sink that have probably never been washed. In her bedroom, she had like a race car bed. So, like, I mean, just imagine the level of like insanity being a mid-20s to 30-year-old adult where there's like a pizza box on the floor. I mean, there was not one space. And then this girl also later wrote that she, I guess, hurt her back or something and didn't have an ice pack, so she used a chicken cutlet and then forgot about it and just it was in her room. I've never, ever seen that level of like disgustingness. I walked in there and then I had to go drive and do a show with her. And I was like, are we not going to bring up what you're doing at home? Like, it blew my mind because I grew up, my mom was never super neat and tidy, but like there wasn't just stuff all over the floor. I mean, like,
yeah.
There was a pizza box that like pizza had been in it and it was just thrown on the floor.
It's so weird when you go to houses like that. Because you're like...
That's the only time that's ever happened. You know what I mean? Like, I've gone to dudes' houses where it's all guys and it hasn't been that clean. This was another level that I could not even understand.
Yeah. Well, that one... Because you're just like... You want to be... Like, are you okay? I think you need some psychological help. Like, I think you're in a really bad depression. Like... This is not good that you live this way. But then you're like, it's none of my business. And I'm just like, I'm just doing a gig with this person.
I know, but how would you... First of all, even if you've seen there was so much stuff in there, there could be rats.
Oh, easily. I mean, I remember going to a house. It's funny. It seems like for the longest time, I remember there was a few places that I've been to. And this was before that show, Hoarders. And you would just go to these places and you're like... You're just looking around. You're like, this is weird.
How
is this?
Could she?
I'm
just like I'm.
Yeah,
Sorry.
And then that
I'm just thinking about it.
It's crazy. And then that show came out, and then you're like this. Okay, now I know what's happening. These people, those houses that I went to, we were dealing with a huge mental instability. Like this is a crazy person that we're dealing with.
It's weird because she's very successful.
I know.
Very intelligent. And so you're just like, it boggles my mind. And it wasn't like hoarding where it was just a ton of stuff. It was just very dirty. Like, I've never seen a toilet ring that dirty or a sink. And she had no, you know, like if someone comes over and you're like, hey, my house is a mess. She didn't say that at all. She let me come in. I wasn't like, hey, I haven't cleaned in 12 years. There must be some... I think they say a lot of times when stuff like that happens, there's trauma or like they were molested or something because that's not a normal way for a person to live. It's just insane to me.
Yeah. There was a comics place that we went to recently that we were friends with, and it's not gross what he has, but it's definitely one of those things where you're just like, oh, man, I think you're substituting, your addiction has crossed over into like perpetual buying of crap because it's just insane. You're like, it looks like you're having a garage sale on your yard right now.
Was it dirty though, or just a lot of stuff? This was filthy dirty.
It's not dirty. It's just where you're just like, you're like, this is a lot. You're like buying a lot of stuff that's unnecessary. And it just looks like now it's kind of crossed over into a mental thing where you're like, you can't, there's piles everywhere. Nothing is organized. Now it's in their yard. You're just like, it looks like an obstacle course back here. Like this is, and I was like, no, you don't ski. Why do you have ski? Like, you know, when you start seeing like, you're like, this is a lot of equipment that you're not using. Like, this is insane.
My stepfather's kind of like that, like a pack rat where he had stuff from probably the 80s or 90s. Just, you know how you talked about having a lot of computer cords and stuff?
Yeah.
He had like like those old computer like screens. Do you know what I mean? He had, when I moved back into my mom's house for like 2-3 months after that breakup, I had to clean out that room, and it was just like a bunch of his stuff. And like, he won't throw anything away. If you throw stuff in the garbage, he'll go look for it. So I had to take bags and big black, like heavy duty bags, and put them in my car and then throw them out at my house. Like, that's how insane it was. And it was just tons of wires and like floppy disks, just like stuff you're never going to use. So he kind of has that pack rat mentality. But it wasn't dirty. It was just like a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's just like a bunch of unnecessary clutter where I know it sounds like for you, it's the same way for me. Like, I don't mind a little mess, but like if in our apartment.
That's how I grew up.
Yeah, when in New York, after a while, like, and even in our place that I'm like, Joe, we got to tidy up or throw shit away because this is too much like crap.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like scarred by that girl's apartment.
I mean, it is. It's disturbed because I remember going to one house in Houston that was kind of like that. And I remember just being like, we were all hanging out late drinking there, and it was just trash in every room. It was insane that eventually I was like, when I was talking to the guy, I was like, where can I put my can? I'm just finished with it. And then I just threw it on the ground because I was like, oh, you don't give a shit about how you live. So I just threw it on the ground. I was like, it was the most insane thing I've ever seen. It was like living in a dump.
You know what's weird too is like that girl, I've talked to her recently about something totally unrelated, but I've always wanted to ask her if she ever cleaned that place up.
Yeah, because you're like, that is probably the most fascinating thing about you.
I guess it's like a level of Arrested Development, like to have a race car twin bed when you're like 28, 30. It's just like some trauma happened there. It's just like, I feel like if she has a therapist, she should bring them to her house.
Yeah, let's start there. Especially like, I don't know, even if it, like, for a girl, it's really weird to have a race car bed.
That's what I was going to say.
But like
it's
a guy
weird.
at 27, you'd be like, this is weird that you have a race car bed. But then you're like, I guess I can kind of let it slide. But if we're dating, we're going to have to talk about your race car bed. Like,
so bizarre. Well, like a bizarre, weird, I don't know. And I talked to her recently. That's what made me think of it. Where you're like,
I know. You should, I guess, I mean.
I asked her for something I needed, so I can't also then criticize her.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean?
But a lot of the times it's because you want to help.
Yeah, it would be help. Like, I don't know. There was nothing. I was too young to really say anything, but I was concerned because she's a very talented, funny, smart, intelligent person. So I was taken aback by it. But maybe she doesn't know that that's weird. I don't know.
I guess not, but I know. Like, I remember the one time I went to there's this guy that lived down the street, and he lived with like 3 other dudes, and it was kind of the similar thing where they would have like 10 different chairs in the living room, but no table. That you're like, what is this? And then you'd go to their bathroom, and it would just be like one guy friend just had tons of shampoo bottles in the bathroom that had only this amount of liquid in it. So then I was like, hey, let me come over. I'm going to help you clean up. So I was in there, and their one roommate was getting really upset that I was throwing away his shampoo bottles with this much shampoo in it. I was like, let's either consolidate all of these or let's get you a whole new shampoo bottle and get rid of all of these for you guys. And you could tell that he was giving me pushback on it. And then I felt like I was overstepping a boundary with him that I was like, okay, I think we're good for today. But it was very difficult to get that guy to like,
it is interesting
want to clean up.
It is interesting, like, to be on Zoom. Maybe that's the way I can see how her apartment looks now. If I get on a Zoom call with her,
should we have her have her do a podcast? Is she a comic?
She used to be.
She probably just like pushes the things out of a way. Because some of those people, when you go to their room, you're like, where are you? They just like scoot all like the soda cans or whatever to the side, and then
I was
next to it.
walking on it like it was a dump yard. There was no path. Like my stepfather has a lot of stuff, and he's also now in the basement apartment. So he has like, if you walk, there's piles of stuff up to like here, but there is a path. There was no path. You're just walking on everything.
Yeah. The fascinating one is that she's got her. It looks like she's successful and has her shit together. So it's like people that you work with.
Very successful and smart and funny and like intelligent.
Yeah, it's obviously
like,
a mental block or something.
Or like something traumatic happened in her life. And also like I don't want to have to bring that up. If you know what I mean? Like I don't want to have to unbox that. Well, I'm just trying to help her clean, and she's going to go through her childhood and tell me something I'm not prepared to help her with. Because after, I'm just going to leave. I'm not going to deal with whatever.
You're like, I don't know you well enough, but I really was like more intrigued about your apartment. I mean, sometimes I've talked about that with somebody before. Oh, is this girl that we went to high school with that she adopts a lot of kids from like third world countries. And at first they were all about like going to therapy to like deal with the trauma of because some of them were just like street kids. And so they've seen a lot of shit. But she's like, after a while, it became so, she felt like it wasn't doing the kids any good, and it just made them really upset and depressed. That she was like, sometimes I feel like if they're doing fine and they're going through life, then, you know, maybe it's not great to bring up past trauma if they're not ready to bring it up.
Also, like, so much work to adopt kids from other countries. Like, if you want to be a good person, just like adopt pit bulls. It's like the same probably feeling of feeling good about yourself, and you don't have to do all that paperwork.
I mean, that is an extreme amount of work to
go to get kids from every country, or just to get a couple of pit bulls.
I know. You know what's really weird? My friend who does a lot of pit bull rescue, she just got her leg bitten the shit out of her pit bull that she had to give it up.
This is the thing. I love pit bulls, but I don't really trust them. Like my mom has one. My mom has is she a pit bull? She's my mom always says she's like a mix of stuff because people get scared around her. And I love her, but like if she did anything to Zuzu, I would cut her throat out. Like I just don't always trust. Like I know that they're great with that. Like Mackenzie is my mom's dog, and she's great with my nephew. But, like, I still don't know I don't know. I guess this is the way I feel about pit bulls. I love them, but if you told me it attacked your whole family, I'd be like, that makes sense. Like, if you told me a boxer or a pug did that, I would be shocked. But, like, if you told me your pit bull or even your Rottweiler, we've had Rottweilers. We had a Rottweiler that my dad was scared of. Like, because we had Tiki, right? And Tiki was one of those dogs I was never that close to. She really only loved my mother. And she liked my dad and stuff, but if she was in the bed, my dad would have to get my mom to get the Rottweiler out of the bed. So that's like another dog that, like, we've had two of them. They love kids, but, like, if it killed a whole family, you would be, like, not surprised.
Yeah, you're like, I could have seen that happening. I'm the same way with pit bulls, and all those pit bull foster parents or advocates are always like, they are so sweet. But then you're like, how come anytime in the news I see the worst kind of mauling is by a pit bull?
And they are really sweet. But also I feel like if you adopt a kid, that kid could also kill your whole family. And I'd be like, I get it. So like I kind of, I guess, think of adopted kids and pit bulls the same way.
Yeah, you don't know what you're going to get.
Well, also everyone wants to brag about getting one. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone's always like, I just got this adopted kid from whatever country. And people feel the same way about their pit bulls.
Well, that's why I liked, Mike Christine had a joke about like the reason why you adopt kids from another country or from another race is like, how else are people going to know that you're a really good person? Like if you got them the same race as you, then no one would know that. They would think that they're yours, and you would be like, no, I'm a really great person. I got this from a war-torn country.
You could probably just put a sticker on your car.
Yeah.
I'm a great person. My kid's adopted from Vietnam.
That's what like Angelina Jolie. Like that one is always crazy to me. Like, can you imagine adopting 8 kids with your husband, and then after like 4 years of marriage, you're like, this isn't working out, and then you're like, yeah, but we adopted all these kids.
Well, first of all, there's no way people say they love their adopted kids as much as their natural
Biological
born kids. Yes. Look, if I get into a marriage with somebody and we adopt 4 kids and we also have 4 of our own kids, I only care about those 4 kids when we get divorced. The other ones, like, I'm not going to be mean to them. I'll buy them, like, ice cream if we're all out, but I'm not going to fight for those 4 kids. And people are going to say that's fucked up, and they're not wrong, but that's just the way I feel.
I mean, how can in some way... I mean, that's the thing. I guess I don't know, but... It does feel like you would have more of a bond with your biological than you would with your adoptive. But I'm sure I'm really wrong on that one.
I think look, I've always felt like Marley was my first dog, and I always felt like I would have killed Zuzu to keep Marley like alive and healthier for another 10 years.
Let me see
Zuzu's
Zuzu.
kind of like, what'd you say?
I wanted to see what Zuzu looked like as you were saying that right now.
Zuzu's
like
not even in. She's not even in here, but
oh,
but she's kind of like an adopted dog, adopted kid, where you're like, well, I'm not gonna fight for you, but I love you. But like, what am I gonna do? I got these other 4 real kids.
I know. I feel like in my mind, I would overcompensate with the adopted because I wouldn't. I think they would be like, I think she's treating us less because of the biological, and then I wouldn't want them to think that. So I think I would end up probably, spoiling the adoptive more than my biological.
Well, my dad adopted me when I was a kid, and I always felt like he hit my sister more. My sister was also dumb because we'd get into fights and she'd scream, and I would just be quiet. But
yeah,
like,
was that his biological?
Yes, and I was
Okay.
not his biological, but I was just smarter. Like, we would get into fist fights, and she would be screaming. And he would say to her, I'm not hitting your sister because she's not screaming. And then we'd get into a fight, and she would still scream. Like,
Yeah.
she's just that person that would just keep getting beat up.
You're like, look, you're not learning your lessons.
I know. My mom always, like, I told you this before. My mom wouldn't let me lay in the bed with my father, I guess, because she thought he was going to fuck me because I wasn't his kid. I was like, what about the fact that I'm just, like, a child? You think he's just not going to fuck me because I'm adopted?
It's like, Mom, are you projecting? Are you trying to fuck me?
And my mom didn't have any insight because my dad wouldn't even hug me, let alone fuck me. It was such a weird thing where I'm like, he's so emotionally checked out that there's no way he would fuck me.
You're like, he doesn't even talk to me.
We probably had 4 conversations my whole life.
Yeah. Dads are weird like that.
He taught me how to, I guess he had to take me from my driving lesson. He would get so frustrated at anything he had to show you. So I was like, I failed my first driving test and he was so mad at me, but like he also didn't really help me. And he failed his test, I think, once or twice too, but he was so mad. That's like the type of person he was. He would never really help you on anything. He got so frustrated. Like, I don't know that he was really a good dad. Like, he wasn't bad. Like, he provided for us whatever money he had after he gambled it all. But
yeah, it was a great dad.
I don't know. Was that a good father?
Probably.
I mean,
not.
He didn't fuck me. That's what I thought was a good childhood. My dad didn't fuck me.
I like that your parents had no idea how low your threshold was. Your expectations.
No.
If they knew that, maybe they would feel better.
I guess. So bizarre. When you look through it, I remember when I went to Alan and I thought I had a good childhood just because nobody fucked me. I said that to him and he was like, Adrian, you had a terrible childhood. And I was like, really? He's like, yes. Nobody gave you any attention. I was like, oh, maybe that's why I'm a comic.
He'd probably be like, I think kids that were getting fucked probably had a better childhood than you did. Somehow.
Well, they were definitely getting attention. They were spending time together.
They were a family unit.
Yeah. There was none of that in my house.
Yeah. Yeah, it's though I feel like that's such a low bar that you had no idea.
Did I send you that did I text you that thing I found? I was looking through like old stuff. I finally cleaned out a closet just with all this time from when we were in quarantine all the time. And I found a letter to my mother and I said something, I was 7 years old, and I said something like, You hurt my feelings. And then I said, I feel very alone and I feel like I have nobody. That's what I wrote at 7.
I like it because you were able to articulate how you were feeling, because I feel like I would have just kept that inside or being like, I guess that's just, I'm being silly.
I'm sure that was before I started like overeating as a child. I'm sure she got that letter and then was like, here, have an apple pie. Like, that's what I'm going to assume happened. But that's so bizarre as a 7-year-old, and my mother saved that. Isn't that even weirder to have proof?
I know. Like, you're like, your mom's like, look what you wrote. Isn't that hilarious? And you're like, I think it was a cry for help, Mom.
I sent it to Alan, and he was like, this is very sad, Adrian.
He's like, you're bumming me out right now on
He's like,
vacation.
I'm gonna need to see my therapist.
I wonder if he does go to therapy.
I think so. I think they all go to therapists. They have
I know.
to.
I reached out to him. I wrote him an email expressing, and it's really weird because a lot of the times when you're like, Alan, I sure you know all of this because you're a therapist, but I guess they also have to hear it as well. But you just assume you're like, I was just like, I don't know how else, this is really weird. I feel, because his son died, and I was like, I want to express that this is really sad, and I want you to know that, like, we're thinking of you. But you're like, at the same time while I'm doing it, I'm like, you're like, you know how all this is, you know what all of this is, like.
Yeah, but you know what I like about him? He doesn't always tell you to do like what would be perceived as the right way to act. Do you know what I mean? Like, when my biological father and I met him, and he didn't want me in his life, and I remember meeting up with him, and like all his family was jealous of me, and we went out to the diner, and he was like checking his watch like he was cheating on me. Like, not cheating on me, cheating on his wife with me. It was so weird where he was like, I'm going to have to go soon. He's like, I don't want her to lock the doors. I'm like, hey, we're not fucking. This is so bizarre.
Yeah.
And Alan was like, write him a letter. No, he said you could send him a text. And it was not like a super nice text. And he was like, and then block him. And I was like, yes. This is because, most therapists will be like, that's not correct, or you shouldn't do that. He was like, do that. And I was like, that's what I liked about him. Like, I'm talking about him. It sounds like he's dead. But
yeah.
That is what I like about him, that he will tell you, like, if somebody's awful in your life, he'll be like, cut them off. Tell them they're awful.
I'm a huge fan of anybody. I mean, I do that on Twitter all the time. You say one thing, even if you start your sentence with a compliment and you end it with a jab towards me, you're getting blocked. I was like, because I'm like, I just don't need that negativity in my life. And I'm all for, like, now, like, just cutting people out that are just negative.
Yeah, I remember when I was talking to Marlene about it. She was like, well, you shouldn't block people because then they feel like they're not being heard. And then, like, I went on this diatribe of just conversation with somebody, and she was like, why don't you just block them? I'm like, you told me not to. You told me that they won't feel heard. She was like, because then in a way you're like, these people feel vindicated that you blocked them. But then in the other way, it's like my whole day is just checking my phone to see what they wrote so I can write back.
Yeah. And then you just let this complete psychotic stranger. I mean, I think anybody that reaches out on social media to express that they hate you is a psycho, and they are horrible people.
That person's not your friend. That person, I one time went back and forth with somebody. Must have been an hour or two. Tell me I wasn't funny. They were like, oh, you couldn't follow Donnell Rawlins on the Degenerates. I was like, that's not the way they were even taped, you fucking retard. But we're going back and forth with each other for like an hour or two. And then he finally was like, oh, I actually liked your Degenerates. And I'm like, why did you do this then? He's like, he goes, you need to up your social media game. I'm like, go fucking die in a fire.
You know, what kind
you're upset by your free content?
That's the kind of, you know what he is? He's that toxic mom on Maury Povich that fucks your boyfriend to teach you a lesson that your boyfriend's a piece of shit. That you're like, thanks, mom.
You shouldn't be fucking him. He's a cheater. And you're like, well, you're not great either. You're like, well, I did it because I loved you. You're like, I don't think that's how love works.
Oh, man. I wish that would be fun to go into an Alan appointment and just tell him an episode of Maury Povich as if it's your life. Like, Alan, my mom had sex with my boyfriend or my husband to show that he's not a good man. Like, what do I do?
I remember after me and one of my boyfriends broke up, my mother was still talking to him after. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? And I was like, do you like him? And she was like, no. She was like, but he finally opened up to me after we broke up. And I'm like, but he wasn't your boyfriend. Who cares if he's opening up to you? Stop talking to him. This is weird. It's so bizarre to be like, your boyfriend finally opened up to me. It's like, well, who cares? He doesn't have to open up to you.
Your mom did it. That's so funny that she's like still talking. And being like,
not now, but like for a while, and I had to like be like, you got to stop talking to my ex-boyfriend. It's weird. And he was older than me too, so he was almost like the same distance between me and my mother. I think he was about 8 or 9 years older. So like he was only that much younger than my mother.
Yeah. Well, I mean, did you pay attention to the Jada Pinkett Smith and the Will Smith shit with the red table? She basically fucked her son's friend and called it an entanglement.
I know, and people were like, if this was the other way around, people would be freaking out, and I think they're right. If it was a guy that kind of groomed his daughter's friend, people would go nuts. But that is really the only thing that we have over men, is that we could do shit like that, and people don't consider us like rapists. Or
yeah,
like, he is of age, but he's like your kid's friend.
Yeah, it's inappropriate at most.
Also, like if you're your son's other friends, you're like, why didn't she pick me? Like that would make me feel bad if I was one of her weird kid's other friends.
Yeah.
And you're like, what did that guy have over me? And then you just feel bad about yourself.
Wasn't there some comic when anybody's like, I'm going to go fuck your mom, and then I thought there was some comic that was like, everyone always acts like that's a put down, but for me it's like, good. I'd love for my mom.
You want your mom to get fucked?
Yeah, properly. No, I don't. Like, that does not even cross my mind. It's not even in my top concerns that my mom is getting dick.
I don't think now. Maybe she will eventually, but she's probably not getting dick right now.
No, I don't even think she wants. She'd be like, Sarah, I don't want dick. And I'm like, come on, Mom.
You're like, get some. It's free. We're at the buffet. There's so much dick here where you can have as much as you want. I think a lot of women just get older and like sex is just not as important to them. Or like also you could also just get off and be fine with that. I think for women when they're older too, they just kind of want an emotional connection. Like my mother having an emotional connection with my ex-boyfriend.
She's just making breakthroughs way after you've like left him. You're like, yeah, Mom.
But we're done. I also thought it was progress because it was the black guy. So I was like, she's really becoming so open. Who am I to stop her from interracial dating?
With my boyfriends.
Yeah, my ex-boyfriend. I'll be like, I was a little upset at first, but she's so progressive. How could I be mad?
You're like, at least we fixed one problem, but now there's like another one that's happening.
Where I got to watch my boyfriends around my mom.
You're like, good news, my mom's not racist anymore, but she started a relationship with my ex-boyfriend who's black. So
what's hilarious is my mother wants to keep dating these Italian guys, and I'm like, each one of your Italian husbands was not great.
Yeah, why go back?
Her first one was a drug addict. My dad was a bad gambler, and her last husband was a alcoholic. I'm like, go for another race.
Yeah, try Irish maybe.
No, alcoholics. That is not. I'm like, go date a black guy.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'll just call your ex-boyfriend up. I'm like, go ahead.
Okay. Sure. I mean, he opened up to you more than me, so.
That's true. I should be like, how did you get him to open up? What did you do?
Yeah, you're like, I couldn't get him to say one word to me.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Did you watch the new Cardi B video?
No. I was watching 90 Day Fiancé. And
I got to get into that one.
And Selling Sunset.
Oh, yeah. Those are two good ones. I haven't watched 90 Day. Chris Allen's trying to get me into it because of you.
Yeah, well, you should watch it. It's fascinating, and you could tear through them so quickly. But yeah, what was the Cardi B? Tell me about it, because I feel like I've heard about it. I just haven't watched it.
Well, I mean, it's blowing up. I think you'd really like it. It's just fun because she's just talking. WAP just means wet ass pussy, and it only reminded me of that because you said because your mom keeps dating Italian guys, so it made me think of WAP.
That's hilarious.
And then it's all it is talking about her wet ass pussy being like macaroni in a dish, like everything is wet and squishy, because my wet ass pussy.
That's so hilarious. Are there people getting upset thinking she's talking about WAPs?
No, because I mean everyone knows she's just talking about wet ass pussy.
No. I mean like Republicans, older Republicans who are upset.
I guess so. I mean, they're probably getting upset more about the video because it's just all about two women talking about their pussy and then their tits and ass are out. And I'm like, I love it. It's just like this video is it looks actually poor quality to me, but it kind of fits with like just the basic music quality of it. But it's just like fun. The beat's fun and the music is fun. And then
I gotta listen to it.
It's so pointless. Like Kylie Jenner's in it. And then all these like Twitter accounts are like, this is such a prime example of a white woman coming in and not doing anything. And all the black women are doing all the work. And then Cardi B is like, what are you talking about? She's like, I know a lot of things have to deal with race, but this is not one of them. I'm just talking about my wet ass pussy.
Also, what a weird thing to just be like, Cardi B has to work for her pussy to get so wet. And Kyle Jenner's pussy's already wet. She doesn't even have to work for it as a white woman. Also, Cardi B asked her to be in her video.
Yeah, and she did it because she's like, she's just been really nice to me and my family, and I like Kris Jenner, and she's helped me out a whole bunch, so I thought she should just be in my wet ass pussy video. And that's how it is. That's how you get stuff. You just get you're nice to people, and then they put you in their video.
I wonder if there's some women out there who are like past menopause and they're like, my pussy's more like dry spaghetti.
It's a dry ass pussy. It's
more like,
dap.
Yeah, my pussy's still like spaghetti in a box.
Yeah, instead of the wet macaroni in a dish.
Also, too, all you have to do is pee a little bit and then your pussy's really wet. So
yeah, she didn't talk about that in the song.
maybe that'll be in the remix. If your pussy's not wet, just like pee a little bit, and then it'll be really wet.
Yeah, just try peeing. And then she has Megan Stallion in it, who's from Houston. Did you know she got shot? I had no idea that she was shot. That's so crazy to me.
I don't even know who you're talking about.
She's like that one hit that's always popular on TikTok where where it's like, I'm ratchet. That one.
I think you're more hip than me. This is why I want TikTok to be canceled, because I don't know what's going on.
Because I'm just getting really in the thick of hip hop culture.
You do know how to twerk pretty well. How did she get shot?
I don't know, because people were really upset about like making jokes that Megan Stallion got shot. And I was I didn't even know that she got shot. But I'm like, who's making jokes about Megan Stallion getting shot?
Well, now I'm going to go and bring it up to somebody so I look like I know something and they don't.
Yeah, just bring it up in a conversation, just being like, I can't believe people were making jokes about Megan Stallion getting shot.
I'll bring it up to my mom to see if she's talking to my black ex-boyfriend.
Your mom can talk about her WAP to your ex-boyfriend.
Oh, that's hilarious. I should ask her if she knows about it.
Yeah, I'm all for you guys starting your own podcast because I think it'd be really funny.
I don't know how to do it. I feel like that will just send me deeper into therapy.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we talked about.
Show me how to do it one time, and then I'll figure it out.
Okay. Well, maybe one day we can be in the same room. What if we never see each other again?
We will. I'll come see you after 2 weeks to make sure you don't have COVID from going on the road, and I'll come see you.
That's true. I want to take a test, but I also don't want to take a test. Also, it's just
First of all, it's going to take 2 weeks.
I know. That's like this comic James Heskey had tweeted. He's like, guess what, guys? Good news. I didn't have COVID on July 16th because he just got his test results. And you're like, yeah, what is the point of not knowing you had it 2 weeks ago?
I guess that you just can say you got tested. I don't know, but you're staying home for 2 weeks. Well, most people are. I don't know if everyone is.
I just want to get tested because since this was the first time of doing like an extended thing indoors with people and then like mics and stuff like that, that you just want to make sure that like a place like that didn't, just for the benefit of other people at least. And if it's free, it's like, why not? I have nothing else to do.
That's not true. You could be on TikTok learning more dance moves.
I could before they close it down.
I'm going to listen to the Cardi B song.
Please do. It's really fun. I think it'll make you feel better. And it's just catchy and all different ways to talk about your wet ass pussy. Like, I didn't know.
I love it. What time is it?
It's 12:15. I gotta.
Ooh.
I was gonna head out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a Zoom AA meeting.
Ooh, fun. Yeah. Before we go, tell me how to do this. I guess let's sign off, and then you can tell me what to do.
Okay, I'm going to. Oh yeah, everybody, email us vadgepodcast@gmail.
Send us your questions.
Send us questions.
What you're doing.
Review us.
Buy
Follow
Sarah's
us on
album.
Patreon. We need money.
Or Sarah's gonna have to start
stripping
making
again.
And making videos of her wet ass pussy.
It's not a bad idea. But yeah, do all that stuff. You know where to find us.
Yeah, in the Bronx for me.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys. Thank you.